This is Marine Nationale, winner of the Champion Chase at the Cheltenham Festival in 2025. When he won that race, he brought his Cheltenham Festival tally to 2 from 2. He won the Supreme Novices Hurdle in 2023 as well, and added to his tally in maintaining his 100% at the Cheltenham Festival last year. Since then, the primary objective has been to go back and win the Champion Chase again. We came along to the owner trainer Barry Connell's yard here in Nerney in County Kildare to see how preparations are going.
He came out of the race great. He came home and he ate up, and we normally give them a quiet 4 or 5 days. So this morning was the first day he was on the gallop. And Garrett rides him. He was delighted with him, you know. He seems bright, like he would have been entitled to feel a bit down the dumps after having what looked on the face with a hard race on bottomless ground. But he's a great constitution. You know, he was unfortunate at Leopardstown at Christmas. He launched himself, he was mad well, launched himself at the second and came to a standstill, and kind of we thought afterwards like he might be a bit quiet for a few days, but not a bit of it. You know, like he's just tough.
And he showed that toughness the last day when on ground that would have been way too soft for him. He really battled on to get up for second place.
I walked the track in the morning. I'd been in touch with Peter O during the week, and I walked the jump track and it didn't walk that bad, but when Sean came in he said it rode terrible, it rode rotten, and look, he's won on kind of spring soft ground before, and I thought he might get away with it, and I wanted to get a run into him, and luckily it hasn't done him any damage. And as you say, he was the second half of the race, he looked like he was going to be a bad third jumping the last, and he battled away to the line, put his head down and got up to be second, which was an admirable run in the circumstances. We have a realistic contender to take on in the Champion Chase in Majborough. Do I think we can make up the difference with them? I think we can. I think it'll be a home game for us. We're definitely better on spring ground. We're definitely better in Cheltenham. We love Cheltenham. We've been there twice. I think most of Majborough's form is on softer, heavy ground. So I think all of those factors should narrow it. But look, I think it'll be one of the races of the festival, and it's great to have these races, you know, because too many times in the past couple of years, you know, we haven't had the matchups. The races have fallen apart. We've had 3-1 on shots, small fields. I wouldn't swap our horse for anything. I think he's bomb-proof temperament. He's all the attributes for Cheltenham. I think his makeup physically, he's such an athletic horse. He's able to cope with the ups and downs, the undulations, the fences coming up at you on a bend. He's been there and done it. And I think when you look back over the years, the Cheltenham factor is massive. The horses that perform well there year in, year out. And the ones that struggle there struggle year in, year out.
Is that just a happy coincidence that Marine Nationale loves Cheltenham? As you say, it's a combination of whatever ground and the track itself. Or do you train him with Cheltenham in mind for the season that he's going to reach his pinnacle at Cheltenham?
He was actually trained for the DRF last year because he kept improving every run. People were assuming that this was a clever, cunning plan, that I'd peak him for Cheltenham. But in fact, he had missed most of his novice season the previous year because he'd been injured, and he'd only had 1.5 runs as a novice. Especially when you're jumping over 2 miles as opposed to 3 miles, it takes a lot of practice to get the precision of jumping at speed in a 2-mile chase. So we started small, the Poplar Square. He finished third there, ran a good race, and then he stepped up again every time. So he was learning on the job. And this year he's the finished article, which is why I fully expected him to win when he went to Leopardstown at Christmas. I think he was unfortunate not to win. Now, he made a mistake. I think that mistake was not out of technique. It was out of just freshness. He was mad well. He popped the first, and he hadn't a clear look at the second, and he just let fly at it. And you couldn't see it from the television angle. But when you look at Pat Healy's photo, he took off a half stride early and he was lucky to stand up. He landed. Sean was at the buckle end of the rein and he ended up turning around sideways and he was heading up the M50 the wrong way. And I couldn't believe how he got back into the race and nearly won. It was extraordinary. Yeah. And on your race IQ data, he lost 15 lengths at that jump and he was beaten a half a length. Yeah. So no, I think he's the finished article this year, and events have conspired against us. What happened at Christmas was unfortunate, and then In my 25 years experience living near Leopardstown, I've never seen rain like it in the area. We got 2 weeks rain that we normally get in 6 months. And Leopardstown, I've never seen Leopardstown as deep as that. Like if you get a dry week, they're watering the chase track. I had the easy option would have been not to run them on the day. And I wanted to support the DRF because I think it's gone beyond a stepping stone now into something that's in of itself a goal during the year. And it's I put it on a par with Punchestown. So we wanted to go there and compete. Even though I knew we'd be behind the 8 ball with the conditions, I thought with the constitution of the horse and the mentality he has, it wouldn't do him any harm. And hopefully it hasn't. He seems to have bounced out of it. So, look, I think we got away with it.
On Cheltenham this year, as well as Marine Nationale, you have Eachtotheirown, who looks like a really promising and progressive novice hurdler.
We had him in the autumn of his 4-year-old career. We brought him to a schooling race in Tipperary. And we're expecting him just to tip around and run, finish a nice race. But he ended up winning on the bridle. And there were 3 or 4 fancy graded horses behind him. So I thought, here, we have a right one here. He's by Westerner, same size as William Munny, and they take a bit of time to develop and they're very hard on themselves. So he ran a couple of bumpers last year, was way too keen. He was second to Kaiser Ball in Fairyhouse. We won his maiden hurl in Galway, and we said, right, we're going for the Royal Bond. And I thought he'd win the Royal Bond. He bolted up in Galway. I thought he'd win the Royal Bond, and we had a few around November running under par. And he ran no race in the Royal Bond. So I cheekily put him in for a handicap mark, and we got a mark of 124. He went to Thurles there, and again, it was an ordinary race. And I said, look, just jump off out in front of nobody wants to make it. And it's not ideal. He'd be better with the lead. He bolted up and he got 13 pounds. So, look, he's a 137, and you want to be, William Munny ended up a 155 after he was second in the Supreme last year. But going into it, he probably would have been a 140. So we're not a million miles away from it. I think there's another 10 or 12 pounds improvement in him. If he can run in a properly run race where he doesn't have to make the running, he can sit off the pace, second or third or fourth or whatever. Now it's going to be a very good Supreme this year. I'd say it's a much better race than last year. Strength and depth. That's what it looks at the moment. Maybe I'm wrong. And I don't like bringing horses to Cheltenham if they don't have a chance. He's going to be a huge price, 33 to 1 or whatever. But if you look at the experience he's had, he's won a maiden hurl, he's ran the grade 1, and he's won a handicap. And I think that'll stand to him.
Just on William Munny, it must be fairly gutting not to have him for this year, but we saw him and he seems well. And he's
he looks great, seems well. We made a decision at the end of last year, in the summer, kind of between the end of last year and in the summer. We kind of had an idea that the champion hurl might be open. I couldn't understand why the New Line was favourite after winning the Turners. And our form, we were a length second or a length and a half second to Kopek de Board in the Supreme. I thought the Supreme was a better race last year. Now, I think the Turners, they may turn out to be good stayers, but for champion hurl prospects, and it's turned out that way. We've had 3 grade 1 winners. We've had Romeo Coolio, Aranci, Salvador Monday. So, listen, I don't think it was a mad plan. He was on track, start of the season, everything going grand. The plan was to run in the Morgiana, and about 3 weeks before the Morgiana, just trotting down to the gallop, he was as lame as a duck behind, and I thought he was so lame that he must have broken a pelvis or something like that. And luckily we got the scans done and no broken bones. He just very bad muscle tear in his hindquarters, but unfortunately it necessitated him standing in a box in the middle of the season for 5 or 6 weeks. So Christmas was out, and we're hoping we get to Cheltenham, but Cheltenham's out. So at this stage, he starts back on the gallop next week, and we're hoping with a fair wind, we might get him to Punchestown, which would be nice if we could get him one run in open company. It won't be ideal. We'd be going there with no run, and everyone else will have had a full champion hurl season. But that's the plan at the moment, and he's split very little mileage. I think he 3 runs and bumpers, 4 runs over hurls. So yeah, we'll be giving it a rattle for the champion hurl next year, and hopefully he'll have a clear run at it.